Yuckmouth was technically already together, and they had a guy named Mike Luce playing drums for them temporarily. He was never intended to be the drummer. He wasn't a hardcore drummer at all. He was very much like into Rush and shit like that, but he was a high school friend of Darren's, and he was a great drummer. And anyhow, somehow Dennis Remsing got on my radar, or I got on Dennis's radar through, I think, the skate scene in South Orange County, because he was a skater and I was a skater, and I think maybe we skated at the same ramp. There was
he did a zine, and he actually wrote about the zine. He had a ramp. It was called the Remsing Ramp, as I recall. I don't know. Maybe you skated that, but please go on. You jogged my memory of that.
You know, I don't recall ever skating at Dennis's house. I don't remember him having a ramp. I went to his house when he lived with his parents in Lake Mission Viejo. But there was a ramp in San Juan Capistrano at a kid's house named Steve. Oddly enough, Yuckmouth played there twice at little ramp parties. And I think I met him there. But what I think happened was he had already started Conversion, and I believe was the first record Positive Approach, or was it Borderline?
Pressure Release, I was.
The first.
Oh no, it may have been Borderline. You know, that's a good little piece of history. We need an answer to that in the feed, because that's a very good question.
I could tell you real quickly, because I have those 7 inches. I can just
do it.
Want me to look?
If you don't mind.
Hold on, let's see. No, they were number 3. So it must have been Positive Approach, because
okay.
I think Positive Approach was their first release. Anyway, Borderline was number 3. I don't know what number 2 was off the top of my head. But anyway, as I recall it, Dennis was just this kid who was just, loved the scene, wanted to be a part of it, wanted to start a label. I think he was literally signing any band that would work with him. You know what I mean? I don't think there was a whole lot of, these guys are the next big thing. I think it was just like, oh, you guys are hardcore? Cool. I'll put you on my label. It was kind of like that. From what I recall, I was playing briefly in a punk band in San Juan Capistrano called UTI, which stood for Under the Influence. They did a 7-inch. But I somehow ended up in that band for a brief period of time. And I think he heard that, and he was like, oh, this guy was in a punk band. He's a drummer. And we were skating, and I think he told me, I've got this band. They're a hardcore band from like Huntington Beach, and they need a drummer. Would you like to try out? And I was just like, sure. Because UTI wasn't doing anything. It was a mess. And I don't even know if we ever played a live show. I don't remember. I just remember rehearsing at Jimmy Rosenbaum's ranch. Like, my drums were in a barn somewhere in San Juan. And I actually had to go fetch those drums to try out for Yuckmouth. I hadn't played in months.
Right.
And so I think Dennis put me on the phone with Darren Roberts, the bass player. And he and I immediately hit it off because of our love of horror. And we started talking about Fangoria conventions and stuff like that. And instantly he and I were buddies. And we'd never met. And, Coyle and Doc and Darren were full on like hardcore kids, And here I was, long hair, and I was, musically, I was all over the place. I was into metal, I was into punk, I was into hardcore. For me, the hardcore that I could relate to them was I was into like Excel and Cro-Mags and Suicidal Tendencies and No Mercy, and I was into more of the metal-y hardcore stuff. They introduced
I was gonna say, like, the more intricate stuff. It sounds like you were kind of going with the stuff that was maybe musically a click or two higher than.
Well, I guess you could say that, but I wasn't in tune with the scene. I wasn't in tune with Chain of Strength, No for an Answer, bands like that. Uniform Choice. I really wasn't. I didn't know about that. They introduced that to me. So as I recall, I think Darren Roberts drove to San Clemente, California, and brought me a demo tape. I think it was Darren. I think, because he and I were the ones we were talking back and forth to, and he brought me a demo, like a cassette they recorded, and I listened to it. And the one thing that stands out, I still have that cassette to this day. And there was a couple songs on there with drums, but there was one song in particular that was just bass and guitar, and they're talking. And I remember right before the song started, they're like, yo, I hear Darren go, yo, speak some beats, man, like that. And somebody goes, Cro-Mag style, Underdog style, Malfunction style. And I remember hearing that going, okay, I know Underdog, I know Cro-Mags. I've never heard of Malfunction. I don't know who they are. But what I didn't understand is they were talking about the song Malfunction by Cro-Mags. Because the song that they were playing was Distress, which was on our 7-inch and ended up being re-recorded on the album, which was a slow song like Malfunction. So this is kind of a tangent off to another story. Years later, when Malfunction happened, I always had that in my head. That's a cool name for a band, because I was like, who is Malfunction? And they're like, no, we meant the song. So that's why I decided to use the name Malfunction for the band Malfunction. But anyway, so that's how I got into YUCKMOUTH. I remember trying out for that first time, and they were literally clowning me. I remember it. They thought they were being sly about it, but I could see them out of the corner of my eye, like making fun of me, like, oh, look at this fucking guy. There's no way this guy, you know. They were, and they admit it. You know, we've talked about it. Like, they were just like, look at this guy, because my kit was a joke. It was terrible. It was like, I mean, and I didn't even have a drum stool. I forgot it. I had to sit on a fucking milk crate. It was, the whole tryout from that standpoint was a disaster until we started to play. And I saw their faces go, oh shit. Like, they were looking at each other like, oh wow, okay. And we clicked, and that's how I got in. But I think before I even stepped in the room, before I even met Dennis, YUCKMOUTH was going to be on Conversion.